Hey everybody, so have you heard of virtual autism? Virtual autism is when a child is exposed to too much screen time or an excessive amount of screen time, and it starts to lead to autism-like symptoms in that child. Now, although we know screens are not necessarily the enemy, and we know that sometimes screens can be beneficial because it can be fun and educational, we also know that too much screen time can actually negatively impact a child's development. A recent study was done in which they looked at how early exposure to screens could actually impact a child's development. And so they found that children that were exposed to 3 hours or more of screen time actually started to develop language delays, hyperactivity, and even difficulty with their attention span. They also found that an abundance or an excessive amount of screen time in young children also led to decreased cognitive ability. It led to irritability and mood effects. It led to shorter attention time. It led to decreased social skills and impacted emotional regulation. Other autism-like symptoms, such as a decrease in eye contact as well as communication deficits, were also noted to be found in children who were exposed to a significant amount of screen time. So now with these new recent findings, a lot of people are questioning whether a child is truly having autism symptoms or is it autism-like symptoms due to an excessive amount of screen time, because both of these can present very similarly, and sometimes just that exposure and that increased amount of screen time can induce some of those autism-like symptoms. Now, just because a child is presenting as having autism-like symptoms, that does not necessarily mean they actually have autism. It's just that some of the symptoms that they're starting to show due to watching too much screen time and not having enough of that social engagement with actual people can start to look very, very similar to autism. Now, because of the society and the world we live in today, there are 3 common things that a lot of us are aware of, right? Number 1, children are starting to be exposed to screens earlier and earlier and earlier as the time goes on. Number 2, we know that a lot of parents are exposing children to screens because parents want to entertain their children, or parents have other obligations and they need to basically have their child be distracted for a little bit of time while they get other things done around the house. And even though there's no reason to point fingers or judgment at individuals who have to do this from time to time, it is also being found that children are starting to be exposed to more screen time than they are to actual real life social interactions and engagements with peers and other people in their families. And so if you are a parent that exposes your child to screen time, it's not necessarily a bad thing, and it does not mean that you are a bad parent. However, you definitely want to be mindful of how much screen time you're allowing your child to have, especially if they are in those early stages of childhood development between the ages of like 0 to 5, and even more so between 0 to 3. So be mindful of those negative effects that too much screen time can have for your children. And also be mindful and aware that we live in a world today where, like I said before, screen time is kind of hard to avoid. However, just be mindful that it's so important that your children still be able to get as much interaction and engagement with real world activities, real world explorations, and real people. So we want them to engage as much as they can with hands-on activities and have as many social interactions and engagements with you as the parents and with peers and just humans in the real world. The more in-person, real-world life experiences that your child has, the better it's going to be for them in the long run. Now, if after watching this video, you are thinking to yourself, oh my gosh, I think I am allowing my child to have too much screen time, and oops, I am starting to see some of those symptoms that were talked about, you definitely want to start reducing some of their screen time. So in the next video, if you click there, you are going to be able to learn about strategies that can help you effectively reduce your child's screen time.